Hello, everybody. Welcome to Tuesday. The S&P 500 was up almost 0.6% today. I haven't been able to do these videos for all of last week and yesterday. Today's actually the first day I can sit down. I hurt my leg. And I've always thought about my career. I have to keep my eyesight. I have to keep my brain working and what have you as I age. I never realized that sitting was a key function of my job also. I sit to do the videos, I sit to do my appointments. So I could stand or I could lay down, but I couldn't sit for about 9 days. So today's the first day. So a couple things that I think are interesting that happened since I've been off here. Two things. First of all, I keep reading articles, even still, talking about how the bond market really doesn't like this particular bill that the House passed. And it's amazing. I've probably seen 20 articles with those titles and that subject. And it's not true, actually, which is kind of fascinating. Right before they passed the bill that Wednesday, they had a bad auction for 20-year treasuries that went out. The market dropped 1.6%. And then that night, after the market closed, they redid the bill and they accelerated some of the cuts. So they had some of the cuts starting later, and so they had them start earlier, and it dropped down the deficit that the bill projects to have by quite a bit. The bond market has been going up ever since then. So they were correct about it before these changes were made in terms of the bond market having troubles, but it's not having troubles now. So I do think that's important. You see the bond market at this point in time as being the key issue for what's going to kind of drive some of these pieces as far as that goes. So anyway, just take that for what it's worth. Again, I'm still reading these articles about the bond market. I don't usually the press is kind of on it with a lot of these things, but that's been inaccurate. So the other thing that happened was this whole taco bit. Trump always chickens out. And when I first saw that, I thought, oh, because what happens is the fact that he does change his mind and does move is a feature. Because you look at Liberation Day, April 2nd, we had these huge tariffs. The bond market actually really did freak out, and then he backed off and put it on a 90-day pause and lowered all the tariffs basically to 10% with a few exceptions. And if we would have been a tough guy and hung in there and really stuck with that, we'd be in really big trouble by now. So the fact that we can, I don't even know if I'd be in the market if I didn't think he would back off if things didn't do well. And so now we've got this whole taco thing and all these memes, and in response to that, we now have twice as much tariff on steel and aluminum. We went from 25 to 50%. And we're basically re-upping the tensions again with China, going back and forth about who's, not following along with the agreement that they made in Switzerland, et cetera. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, because I guess the one thought I have here is that we really haven't seen the impacts of these tariffs. We don't know what's going to happen with them. Everybody's assuming we're going to have higher costs. We could have some higher unemployment. And maybe even a recession that could come from these. But we're still waiting to see what's going to happen with those. If they are bad, and if it does turn out that people are right about these tariffs creating problems, then the hope is that there's some adjustments that can be made in terms of what can happen, for those, and maybe those tariffs can be lowered. And so I think it's important that we be able to, pivot if we need to. And now I'm wondering if that's going to be as likely. So I think that's kind of fascinating. Of course, we did have the court situation where they, said, hey, you can't do these tariffs because they're not really emergencies. That's now, temporarily held back by an appeals court, but still going through, probably ends up in the Supreme Court. I actually wouldn't be surprised if the Supreme Court didn't actually follow along with what the first court said, the International Trade Court, and make these tariffs not happen. It's kind of ironic because they'd actually have to pay back everybody who got paid tariffs plus interest. Which would be a disaster. However, there are two different ways that they can do the tariffs, other sections of the tariffs code, so to speak, One, you can do fairly quickly, can be fairly broad, but it has to be approved by Congress within 150 days. And the other one is more industry specific, but apparently it takes quite a while to get those set up. So I read a pretty interesting article about how they could use the one that's quick, use that 150-day period to set up the other one. So, I mean, they still have some chances to do tariffs here. I don't think that's going to be the issue. The issue is what do they do? How much impact do they have on our economy, on the world economy? Again, everybody's ratcheting down their growth expectations and what have you. So I will assume that they're right. And again, that's where we have the hope that there's still some, room for chickening out, because that's a benefit here in this particular situation. Otherwise, if we stick with some of these things, even though things are going poorly, you could have a problem with the bond market or what have you. So anyway, that's what's happening today. The market's at almost at 6,000. It's kind of bouncing off of this, resistance level. It's moving along pretty nicely, actually, even in the face of all this. Again, people are still assuming that there'll be some, adjustments if needed, and so feeling more confident about being invested as far as that goes. I still think we need to see, what type of impact some of these things might have, and that's probably coming this summer, especially later this summer. So anyway, that's what's happening today. Glad to be back. I'll keep rolling here with the daily ones, and we'll do the show this Friday. So thank you very much. Talk to you later.